my name is Richard Dodds, and this is The Branch at Elkhorn Outdoors.
Hello and welcome back to The Branch at Elkhorn Outdoors. My name is Chris Peltz, and all the way from Costa Rica, we have the man, the myth, the legend, right? The founder of Elkhorn Outfitters and Elkhorn Outfitters International, Mr. Richard Dodds. Richard, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Chris?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Good.
This is like having a reunion every week. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's awesome. And of course, joining us from Minnesota is Richard's daughter, Kelly. And Kelly is here to help reminisce and bring back some memories about the beginning of Elkhorn Outfitters. Kelly, how you doing?
Good. It's above freezing, so it's a plus.
That's right. Yeah, I know. I still haven't thawed out since I got back from Costa Rica. I was so hot there, and I get back, and even when we get the 50s, I'm like, I'm still freezing. I want it to be 80.
We're lucky that we're just hitting 50 right now. So
yeah. Wow.
Pretty cold still.
Absolutely.
I remember when Kelly. Just a quick story. I remember when Kelly moved to Minnesota to run the resort. She said it was the weirdest thing. You could see the sun in the winter, but you couldn't feel it.
Yeah.
That's how it is.
I had to get out and be outside, and so I shoveled the driveway, but I didn't realize I got frostbite on my cheeks because apparently 20 below is not a good thing.
No, it's not.
Nope.
Man, yeah, that's about I think 22 below is the coldest I've been in, and that was miserable. That was yeah. I don't care for that much. Yeah.
That's for kids.
Yeah.
What was it up north, Kelly, at the resort? 50 below one time? 55?
Oh yeah. Well, this winter even it was between 50 and 60 below some days.
You can't even explain that to anybody how cold that is.
Pretty sure that's why I'm tougher than everyone on this board right now, but
yeah, you got me beat. That's for sure. Y'all can have that. No, not. I've had my share of cold weather, so. Oh man. Yeah. So, well, you guys, we want to let's talk about Elkhorn Outfitters. I got kind of the sign behind me, kind of feeling a little nostalgic about the ranch out in Craig, Colorado, when Elkhorn was getting started. And Richard, it's been a long time. I mean, that's going back quite a few years, and some really just kind of a cool, interesting story about how all that got started. But also real quick, one of the reasons I think you wanted to have Kelly on as well, because not only have you stressed, getting kids involved in the outdoors, but you did it, right? I mean, you had your kids involved in Elkhorn altogether. But what about how did Elkhorn Outfitters in fact get started? I mean, because you were in Minnesota to begin with, right?
Yeah, well, we had moved to Colorado right in '78, and it's kind of a long, drawn out story, but I grew.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
He disappeared.
He did. Oh no. We lost him. Maybe he can come back.
There he is.
Hey, there he is.
Yeah. So, but I had grown up reading Outdoor Life and, Jack O'Connor and all that in Minnesota. And I don't know, I always kind of had this thing in the back of my head that I wanted to be a guide, in Minnesota. Saying you want to be an elk guide is like, sure, never did it, never did anything like that. But we were, Cheryl and I were in a bad car wreck, and that was the thing that tipped us over the edge. We said, we're going to move to Colorado, and I went first, and then she came out about 2 months later, and we never looked back. We just kind of kept rolling, and it was always kind of a dream of mine to guide. And so I was lucky. I started from scratch, and kind of, again, the long story, I had some success with the bow and arrow and killed a couple elk and called them in. And then our neighbors wanted me to take them. So it ended up that the neighbor that I took was, he worked for General Electric. And so it just kind of grew from there. And kind of the real story is I found a horse up and I was calling in an elk, and I called in a little 4-point bull, and I passed just because it was early on in the season, and then moved about maybe a mile away, 3/4 of a mile away, and then started calling again. I could hear this boom, boom, boom. I could hear something walking coming in again. I thought, here comes that little bull, and I looked back, and it was the biggest, ugliest sheep herder horse you ever seen in your life. He had a huge head, and somebody had shot him in the butt with a muzzleloader. And so I took my belt off and caught him, and then I led him back to camp. And Cheryl and I had been arguing about, because I wanted to rent a horse. I really wanted to rent one and go elk hunting like you read about in magazines, and we just didn't have the money to do that. And so I came back leading this horse to the camper, and she thought I rented one, and I said, no, I found one. And she goes, yeah, right, you found a horse. So I did, and we went to town and told the sheriff that I found a horse, and we're sitting in his office, and he said, I heard him when he went out the office, he said, hey, it looks like we got another horse for this fall. And so I thought, man, if he's going to get him, I'm going to get him. And so when he came back, I said, what do you do? And they said, well, you trace the brand back, and then you tell, like, I think I had $80 in him in a vet bill fixing where he got shot with a muzzleloader. And so they traced the brand back, and the guy didn't want the horse. And so all of a sudden I had a horse and didn't have a place to keep him. We were living in town. And so I asked this guy that I had just hunted with, I said, hey, I know you want me to go call an elk for you. If you'll board my horse, I'll call an elk for you. And so he did. And then we got an elk, and the next thing you know, he's working for General Electric. We went from 1 hunter to 6 hunters the next year, and the next year after that was 12 hunters, and it just kind of kept growing from there.
Wow, that's really neat. Yeah, and I mean, just from finding a horse, getting things started, and I'm sure Kelly's that probably wasn't the horse she wanted for Christmas.
I remember it though. It was a big horse. That was a big one.
It was the biggest, ugliest horse you ever seen. Yeah. He had a head that was, it was long, and he wouldn't fit in a 2-place horse trailer. We had to jam him in and chain him up, so it was a tight fit,
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
But I think back, and Kelly will probably tell you more about this. Poor Kelly, I think when we first started, she was probably 3 months old, and we thought, well, let's get out for Mother's Day. And so we went up in the mountains, and I buried the truck. I went in to help somebody that got stuck, and the next thing I know, we're having to crawl out of our windows, and Kelly's little, and we didn't have enough formula to last, a couple hours, because we're just going to take a little 2-hour trip. So that's why she's here, is she grew up in all that stuff. She was from 3 months on to, if she wasn't in my backpack and we weren't skiing or fishing or, stuff like that, she just was everywhere with us. So I think you probably remember it. That same stuff.
Well, there's a picture of my mom, and I don't know the story obviously, but from the get-go, she was like 7 months pregnant, and I'm in womb, and they were elk hunting, and it's at dark, and I was there from the get-go.
That's right. Yeah.
And we got one. That was the weird. I think back. I was, me. I get possessed on stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, I called in an elk, and we got him. And I told Mom, I said, "Hey, you just wait right here. I'll go get Dean, and we'll pack him out." I left her there, like 3 miles from the truck, in the dark.
Yeah.
And went and got Dean. And when we came back, I could hear this really loud whistling. And singing and everything. And I'm sure when I look back, there's a lot of bears, there's lions, there's all the stuff. And I said, "Hey, you wait right here. I'll be back." And I think she was 5 months pregnant with you.
Oh man. Yeah, you think, things you think about later.
Right.
Oh, I don't think about them until I get my memory jogged, and stuff. And
With a slap on the back of the head from Cheryl.
yeah, oh man, yeah. When we finally got there, yeah, it was not pretty.
Yeah.
But we kept
Wow.
that elk got us through the winter because for food it was a good deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of meat on those elk. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Kelly, what's some of I mean, if you can, I know you've got a lot of memories, but can you think of what what you can remember more than anything else?
Oh, that's kind of a loaded question because I feel like I don't remember anything not being outdoors growing up. So,
Yeah.
I guess for me, like, has nothing to do with hunting, but even just being outside, and I was like 3 years old, maybe, Dad, and I picked peas for fun for my first job when I was 3, and then I'd go ride horses in the back pasture when we were done. But I just think all the horseback rides that we went on when I was little, that was like my favorite and my first memory when he'd go hunting and we'd go camping, and I would just ride on horses when I was 2 or 3, strapped behind my dad or my mom, and away we'd go.
I was thinking as you got older, how many junk or $50 ponies we bought till I saw that picture today, that little black and white one.
Right.
And we'd say, Kelly, you'll be all right. Just get on.
Right. Just hang on.
Every junker we had. I mean,
well, there was a trip that we'd always go to, which is called Kelly Lake, too, but it was so steep that there was a handful of times I'd just fall right off the back of the horse because I wasn't strong enough to hang on. So
yeah, I remember
that was fun.
We packed in. That was like 11 miles to go fishing just on horses.
Yeah.
I remember that there was 3 of you riding that horse. 3, 7, 8-year-old girls all riding the same horse going up.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But that was the fun part. That was fun. I don't like when. Oh, go ahead.
I was just wondering, do you have that scratch too? You can hear that little scratch on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I think it's one of y'all's mics. I don't know if there's a mic that's getting rubbed or moved around a little bit.
Oh.
Might be mine. Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
How's that?
Yep.
I got it lined up. You'd be proud of me here now, but maybe it is mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happens a little bit, so that's something hopefully we can get lined out in future programs. But yeah, so all this is happening in Craig, Colorado, and as you guys get started, I mean, you go from 6 hunters, you go to 12 hunters, 1 year after the next. I mean, how long before it was really, did you consider it to be, kind of a viable business?
Well, I think right off the bat, because I didn't have a choice. It's one of those things where you're fortunate and lucky, and you just kind of make it work, And so I think the year Eric was born is when I went full time, and then Kelly was, I had a regular job. I worked with handicapped kids, and then they would give me the fall off to go do my deal, and then I'd come back, and it just got harder and harder and harder to be away. And then especially during hunting season, and Kelly will attest to it, I could live in the same house and you guys wouldn't see me, would you? Because I'd leave at 4 in the morning and then back at 11 at night, and then do her all over. So yeah. It was a good life though, because then I had 6 or 7 months to be there all the time too. So.
Before we all before we all moved up to Craig, we would drive up there in the fall, and it would be the best because we'd sleep in tents and camp out and hang out with the sheep herders, and it was the best.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
And that lifestyle is just such a different deal with. You can't even really explain it to anybody, can you, Kelly?
No.
you and I are probably so much alike because we only feel grounded when we're outside, you know,
Yeah.
or if we get in a tight spot, where do you head? I head for the woods, you know, or the
Right.
water, just because it heals you, you know.
Yeah. 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 And that's one thing about, you know, being outdoors. That's even before we moved out to Colorado, before we met, you know, I would have my son drive me out to a deer stand in Tennessee, and I'd climb up in a deer stand. He'd go to school and I'd sit there all day, and then, you know, not being able to see, not hunt, be by myself. And then when he got done with school, he would bring the 4-wheeler back out to the stand and pick me up. And that's, you know, that's what I would do. I just go out and sit in the woods all day. And that's, yeah, definitely something that, you know, is it's a good place to be. No doubt about it.
I think, you know, and Kelly experienced this firsthand, and I was pretty proud of her. But a lot of people, and I understand it, they think when you hunt that the killing is the important part of it, you know, and maybe it's, I think all of us go through phases, and I'm the worst hypocrite because, I mean, we were very, very successful at what we did, you know, hunting wise, but I always tried to balance it with keeping what it really was, is experiencing it and sharing it. And and I remember, Kelly, one time we were doing a sports show in Minnesota, wasn't it? And some lady, I had killed a mountain lion, you know, for one of the clients. Remember that whole story?
Yeah, I think it was in Colorado.
Yeah, but she came by and started, she's mad. She said, how can you do that? And how can you kill such a beautiful animal, which they are? But, and I being not having a good filter for that stuff, said that, you know, I had to leave. But then you spoke up and you said, you don't have any idea what it's like to live in that country, and to have trying to find the balance and could talk sense with somebody, whereas me being older, I just didn't have time, you know, to talk and try to explain it to anybody. And that's a bad way to be, but it is really good when you can have a different perspective of everything. My way might not be right, and Chris's way is different, and Kelly's way is different, and that's what's so scary nowadays is, if people don't agree with each other, they automatically get hollered at for not agreeing. And, you know, it's just, sometimes if just can talk, and like you did with that, well, even your roommate, remember that, how she hated hunting, and just the sweetest person in the world. And she hated hunting. And you told me that she's going to come over to the ranch, and I said, ooh, right during hunting season too, which is, you know, our place.
Yeah.
But she kind of got through it, didn't she?
Well, I think it was always for me best to approach it where you can show them what the other side is like, and maybe enlighten them to maybe stuff that they didn't know about it. You know, so then they have a better understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that. Go ahead, Dick. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Chris.
Well, I was just going to say that, you know, the idea of conservation, I think, is something that a lot of people miss. And, you know, I have the opportunity in Missouri, for example, not to buy a fishing license because I'm blind. And so I can fish without buying a fishing license if I wanted to. But I still buy a fishing license because while it isn't much, that money goes to, you know, the conservation department. It goes to the natural resources of the state, and helping protect them and ensure that those resources are there for the future. And so, you know, just doing little things like that is something that, you know, I try to do, and try to, you know, explain and teach people about the idea of conservation and protecting the herds. And hunting is a way of protecting herds of all kinds of animals, elk and deer and antelope as well. But sometimes it's hard for people to grasp that concept, especially if they've grown up or not grown up around it, and been, you know, inundated with the opposite way of thinking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very true.
There's always another side to the story. Everybody's just got to learn it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
And yeah. Yeah. So go ahead, Rich.
I just think it's sometime, and you know, it just, as bad as this time has been with everything that's going on right now, and it is tough on everyone. It doesn't matter what you do. If you sell pencils or you do whatever, it's just been tough on a lot of people. But one thing is it's kind of slowed down and kind of told us what is important again. If people could listen to it, it's a pretty good message, but it is tough. It's really tough. And I see it down here. And you know, I know people go, well, geez, why are you in Costa Rica? Or why are you way there? And for me, I brought my dad down here in 2006, and I always had it in the back of my mind that I was going to get here somehow, you know, and fish. And Kelly knows me better than anybody. It's kind of like when I going to do it, I try to get her done, you know, best I can. Anyway. But
Absolutely.
The people here are so welcoming and open, and their sense of community is awesome. And it is in the States like that too, especially like in Perham. That Kelly's a big member of the community there. And I think if we don't have those communities and have people that support us in good times and bad times, that's not good, and that's going to be the downfall of everything. I know this is a hunting topic or hunting and fishing, but it ultimately doesn't matter if you're in New Zealand, Costa Rica, Perham, Minnesota, Springfield, Missouri. Right. We all are trying to do the same thing. We all have the same goals, the same family goals, a lot of us.
Yeah, that's right. Well, real quick, let's take a break for just a second and let folks know. Go to elkhorninternational.com, and if you're interested in sport fishing, you're interested in big game hunting, you can go to elkhorninternational.com, and you can find out how you can schedule a charter fishing trip, whether it's in the Florida Keys, whether it's in Costa Rica off the Pacific coast where Richard's at right now, or if you want to do some big game hunting, you can go all the way out to Kimberley, South Africa, or even to New Zealand that he mentioned a while ago. But you can find out more information about all of that over at elkhorninternational.com. So, Richard, you know, before we get, because I want to talk about Costa Rica and how you got there, but, you know, we've talked about the beginning and kind of the story with the horse and, you know, getting things started. But you were in Craig doing elk hunts for nearly 30 years.
Yeah, I got up there. Well, our business started in 85. Yeah. So, and 2015 was our last year in Craig. So, yeah, it went fast.
I mean, how much land did you start with? Because I know, because the amount of land you ended with, while I think to most people it sounds astronomical, but you weren't even in the top 10 number of folks in that county as far as the amount of land that you were working. But what did you start with, and what did you end with when you were hunting in Craig?
I started on a ranch up by Slater, Colorado, and it was 6,000 acres. Just under 7, but we ran there for a couple years, and then a guy that I played softball with told me about the ranch, Vicentiner Ranch, and he flew me over there to visit with the people, and so, you know, then it kind of just kept growing. So when we were done, we were working with 3 landowners, and the total of the 3 ranches was right at 120,000 acres. So it was kind of a lot of land to run around on, you know, spoiled us.
Yeah. That was a lot of land, and it covered a lot of elevation. I mean, from 6,000 feet all the way up to just over 10,000 feet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that Pilot Knob, our high country was. Yeah, it had it all. We had a little camp up on top there that was just one of those where you could go forget the world up there and hear elk bugling at night and from your bed, and just good stuff. Good stuff. And the kids, when they'd come up to hunting camp, Cheryl would bring them up in the old days, and then they would bring groceries and stuff like that. And I don't know, you remember the night that all the pack rats were in the camp, Kelly?
Oh yeah. Had to hide the silverware.
Yeah, because I don't know if anybody knows about pack rats, but when you first move into camp, they'll grab. I've seen one time grab a spatula and take off across the floor, running with it because it's silver.
Yeah.
Anything shiny.
Yeah, anything shiny. And I remember we had to clear them out that one night. We had our dog food, and you'd try to sleep in the camp, and you'd hear them pack rats just gnawing on the dog food. And I got my BB gun out and taped a flashlight to it, and then I tell the kids, I said, "Okay, get
hide
under your
head.
sleeping bag. Put your head under the pillow in case I missed and it ricocheted."
Yeah.
And I whacked on them pack rats all night long, and they were big. They're like size of a muskrat,
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but it was those kind of things you bring back the memories,
Yeah.
Little.
Well, Kelly, what was, as far as that land, that was a lot of land. I know you covered it all as well, but I know Richard has a certain part that he's talked to me a lot about, blue gravel, for example.
Right.
But is there a certain area that you would just love to go to more than any other up there?
Well, I love blue gravel too, but for me it was different. I would go ride and have fixed fences. So for a while I didn't really appreciate the land as much as I should have. I'd be like, oh crap, gotta go fix fences. But I love blue gravel just because that's where we would ride and hike the most. So that was the most special. But Pilot Knob was super, super beautiful. And when I met my boyfriend, now my husband, that was the first place that he went to. And so that was kind of like rocked his world at how high up the camp was and how beautiful that was too.
Yeah.
And tell them that you guys have been in about from Jake being a captain to guiding to cooking. You guys have done it all.
Yeah, Jake would probably say to some point he didn't have a choice because I always tell him I have mountain air in my blood, so I'd have to go there, and he didn't have a choice if he wanted to come or not. But yeah, he did all sorts of things. He'd haul the elk back and forth from Pilot. He cooked for a few years there. Did snowmobiling with my brother for a little bit, and then did the boat captaining up in Minnesota. So he got in on it a lot too.
Yeah. What do you think overall, if you learned anything from that kind of life, what would it be? Would it be the people or the lifestyle or
like growing up in the business?
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about this today because I didn't know what I would be asked, but I think of course the most obvious would be the love of nature because it's just that's where we were, and that was church. Was going outside that was our church for myself, and I know you too, Dad. But I think it was the acts of service that I was taught, and that's why it's so important for me now too to have this great sense of service for the community because that was something that you and Mom always did growing up because you would meet people from all over, and however you could give back and be of service to people, that's what you did. So I think that was the most obvious. And seeing how small the world really is, when you start to get hunters from China and Germany and all over, realizing that everybody's out to do the same thing, to find joy and to do what they love, to be in nature.
Do you remember when the Japanese guys hunted with us?
Yeah.
Were you there? Yeah. Six guys from Japan didn't speak a lick of English.
Wow.
They brought 3 interpreters. And so by the time you'd say, it's the third elk from the left, and then interpreter, I'll tell you, and then go. And then it'd be like the 4th one from the left, and you go, no, wait. But just the nicest, most polite people, and
Yeah.
But it just, so our kids grew up with, there might be somebody from Spain, there might be somebody from Japan, there might be a ball player in camp or a country music star or whoever, but they all kind of figured out people are just people,
Right.
and that's what we just pounded in our head in our kids, was that you're not any better than anybody, but you're not any worse, but try to get to know them, different people, and because sometimes everybody's world is so small that they just can't imagine. Right? Am I right with that? Cause,
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
100%.
You met more people.
Yeah.
Real quick.
I remember. Oh, go ahead.
Just real quick, we got a couple of comments. I want to say Phoenix has joined us. She says hello, and that Eric was trying to join, but Eric has made it. So we got another Dodds joining in and saying hi. So Eric is saying hey to folks. So anybody else out there that's listening, if you want to make a comment, go ahead and do so. We'll be sure and acknowledge that. And of course, if you haven't already, be sure and subscribe to the channel as well. We appreciate that also. But yeah, go ahead, Kelly.
Oh, I was just going to say, there was this one week that just always stands out in my mind, that when the business was really big and running like crazy, that some of the big corporations would just send people to hunt, and to them it was just like recreational, like a bonus for their job. And then there was a group of farmers that had worked and saved up for the last 10 years to go there. And so just to see the difference of the two and how much it's still meant to them, but how hard some people have to work to do their dreams, and other people, I don't know, it's just a big dichotomy of people we got to know. Is really interesting and humbling and rewarding.
And one thing that I learned when one of the last the years that I was there, I think it was 2014, and there were two hunters that had come, and they were from Syria. They lived in Boston now, but they grew up and they were from Syria. And I mean, just like you mentioned, as far as from the guys from Japan, I mean, these two guys from Syria were super nice guys. I mean, they were great. They were excited to hunt. They loved, being up in the mountains. They loved hunting camp, and it was just really great getting to know these guys from a country at the time that was just full of turmoil, and things were going on between not only the U.S. and Syria at the time, but other countries as well. And here were these two guys that were just so much we had in common and could relate to, and just super great guys.
I forgot about those guys till you told me about it, and how the world has changed. I was hunting with a husband and wife from Iraq on 9/11, and I remember that just all of a sudden my whole, and they were nice people, but everything changed when we got in at 10 o'clock that morning and saw the TV, and those poor people tried to get back there from New York. And nobody would rent them a car. Nobody would, the airlanes are shut down, and it was just a bad deal. But that's how the hunting world is, pretty small, really, when you think about it. And we were blessed. I mean, we got to experience a lot of stuff. Kelly's been hunting, or not hunting, but fishing, kind of all over the world. We always laugh because we, for me growing up, we took a trip up north and went fishing, which was the best trip of the year. It was unbelievable, our families, and we taught our kids, say, hey, it's a pretty big world. And so what does Kelly do? She goes to school in Spain. Leaves, we're going, well, we didn't mean that far.
Right. Yeah, they said, do what brings you joy, and then follow it. And so I went and got a loan, and I left 2 weeks later.
Wow. Real quick, Eric said Little Buck, I think in response to, one of the favorite pieces of land out there, but Little Buck is, I think, what he loved.
Yeah, Little Buck. That's the kids know where I want to be at the end, so it's up on Little Buck. There was a pile of rocks up on top. We always told them that somebody was buried there, but we had a tradition that if somebody got an elk up on the top, and this was 30 years worth of, you'd put a quarter underneath this little big rock pile on the top, and holy smokes, there was a lot of quarters under there, from people. this was one of our little traditions. And I think then it was like in 2014 or something, somebody grabbed all the quarters. They must have needed them pretty bad, washed their car or something.
Laundry.
Yeah. It was a good tradition. We had a few of them in camp, and like last week we talked about my ugly green sweater and my
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That thing was crusty.
Phoenix said that the world is getting smaller because when she goes fly fishing, I think Bulgaria and where else did she say?
Portugal.
Portugal. Yeah, Bulgaria and Portugal. Yeah, so they're like family friends now. So and she's right. Yeah, that's things just you meet so many great people, in doing this. And Kelly, I think you made a great point. There is a huge difference between guys that are given bonuses and things, or companies that pay to send them out, and guys that save up. And not that any one of them is any nicer than the other, but I think some certainly probably appreciate things a little bit more when they've saved up, just generally. But still, just a lot of great people that just that love the outdoors, and I think that's something that is awesome, that you guys were able to share that with so many people over such a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I always, if I got a chance to hunt with somebody that saved up, for 2 years, that's the ones I wanted, because it was harder because they put a lot of pressure on themselves. We had a spot on the ranch we called Monkey Ridge, and everybody said, "What, you got monkeys there?" And yeah, I'd say, "Yeah, we do." But the thing is, I hunted with the guy that went on 10 paid elk hunts before he hunted with us, and we were down on this ridge and we got an elk. And he started sobbing. He was so happy and crying so hard. And he said, "I finally got that monkey off my back. I got an elk." And so then we never had a name for it, so we started calling it Monkey Ridge, and it just went on. All the stuff got named kind of like that. We had Monkey Ridge and Dead Norwegian Point and Little Buck.
Hockaloogie Lake.
Yeah, Hockaloogie Lake. Yeah. That was the guy we put in that tree stand. He was a pretty big guy, and we couldn't walk him, so we put him in a tree stand and said, "Hey, just be real quiet." And I just Dean sat a little ways away too, and you'd hear that guy honk and then spit. There's no way an elk's gonna come in with it. So anyway, we named it Hockaloogie Lake, and everybody knows where it goes.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, that's great. Well, so, and I know there's a lot of these stories, a lot more stories we're going to get to and in future programs. But after 30 years, you ended up now in Costa Rica. I mean, how has that been? I know you talk about the people, and the people are so nice down there. It really is an amazing place, just for the people themselves. But what do you like maybe the most about? I don't know if there's some similarities. What do you like the most about down there?
I honestly can't explain it. But I have people, like at night I sit and take sunset pictures, and I sit up on top of the boat, and people will just stop by to say hi, and like that's my front porch, so they'll come and say hi, and we'll visit a little bit, and then they'll move on. But both Kelly and I had some trauma kind of deals going on back for the last 5 years, and my deal down here is it's kind of been a healing deal for me. It's a way. I hate being away from my family, but it gave me purpose again with Elkhorn International versus the old Elkhorn Outfitters. I honestly don't think I could shoot another elk, although I love elk hunting, but for me to pull the trigger to take a life anymore or anything like that, for elk and deer maybe, but I couldn't. But down here, like when we got a marlin that comes into the back of the boat, it's just like calling in an elk. I mean, they come in and everybody, your excitement ramps up. You just get screaming, and then when they hook up, they're so aggressive. Sailfish are fun to catch, but when you hook up to a marlin, and Kelly's caught marlin, she knows what it's like. They tear off. I mean, they're like,
Yeah.
see ya. Don't want to be ya, but see ya.
That's the first time I cussed in front of my dad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but that's the deal, and I think here, the thing that I learned in Craig was that if one succeeds, we all succeed, and they're just right now everybody's hurting, and in that trying to figure out where we all fit in, and tourism is a weird deal because it's a really weird business to be in because it's discretionary income. If you got to choose between feeding your family and paying your light bill or paying your car insurance or whatever, you aren't going fishing or hunting. So in turn, that's what pounds us, but if you can keep it in perspective, like we just signed up a deal and I'm really excited about it for in late June. We're going to have a youth tournament team. They're going to have a tournament here. And I was thinking about it. Did I want to get some of my old clients in to fish and do all this and promote it? And then I remembered meeting you, Chris, with the kids. And so we're going to have a kids tournament team. And they're going to be kids from the community here that normally wouldn't go out and go fishing, but by them doing it, we're gonna just make it a really fun day and go have some fun with it and take the pressure off of everybody and give back to the community. And in turn, it always seems like when you give back, you get so much more back. And so
Right.
we want to do that. So anyway,
That's awesome.
That's my big plug for today. I'm pretty excited and pumped for that.
That sounds really cool. I'm excited to hear more about that, and especially as it gets a little bit closer as well, we'll definitely talk more about that also.
Well, we're gonna go ahead.
No, go ahead.
We're gonna copy the deal we had in Colorado, where the kids have to write an essay, saying what fishing means to them and their family, or something along that line. So I don't want it to be a bad teaching moment, but I do want to kind of sort everything out, and then if it really grows, then we'll just keep fishing, and that's our way of keeping in the ball game. I always told you, and I don't mean to go on and on again, but when somebody, like towards the end of my hunting career, our elk hunts were $6,200 a piece, and when I started they were $1,850 for elk and deer both, and I couldn't believe people paid $1,850. And then towards the end, when it was $6,250, it's a whole different pressure of having success and having everything lined up and having the camp work out. And so it's different. And so, but what saved me was hunting with the kids. I could see them and their big eyes, and they come in and we would have them right in camp with the paid hunters and having dinner with them at night and kind of showing them that anything's possible. That's what I want to do here too. Yeah.
That's awesome. That is really cool. Real quick, Kelly, you up in Minnesota, I mean, you're still working with nature, right? And what do you do now?
Yeah, so I actually am a florist. So and I think I just gravitate towards that because it's actual working with my hands, and that it's able for me to make something to give somebody something. So I think it's still that act of service, still that nature influence, still that creative part. So that's what I do.
Yeah. Do you have a website or a Facebook page you can direct folks to? Go ahead.
Yeah, both. The webpage is just kellysmith.com, and that'll lead you to all the social media stuff as well.
Okay.
Yeah. I can be found most of the times when the weather's not freezing, barefoot, working on my flowers. So
yeah. Awesome. Very cool. Very cool.
You what?
Where do you think that love of flowers came from? Because you've been that way forever.
Yeah, I don't know. It all started when the growing up in Craig, I just started working with somebody there. And I think it was just that something physical, touch nature, make stuff that's inspired by nature. I think that's just kind of something that was always I gravitated towards. But
you are an artist at it. You're awesome at it. You know, that's just not your dad talking. That's just I was looking for the other side.
It's kind of a far fetch from everywhere that I have. I mean, what I've done before, but that's something I've always done since high school is work with flowers. So yeah.
Yeah, Phoenix says you're very intuitive and natural florist. So she's got some compliments for you on your flower arrangements.
Thanks, Phoenix.
That's awesome.
I always like to just look at something and be like, okay, what is this flower saying? And that makes me sound like the major hippie of this family, but that's how I roll. So
yeah. No, that's cool. That's awesome. Now, so Richard, you've got the kids hunt. You did the kids hunts. Now you're going to do the kids fishing. I tell you, that's exciting. I'm stoked about that, and hope things go well there. And that's really cool. That marina altogether, where you're at, Marina Pesbella, is, I mean, they're about families, right? I mean, they've got the big amphitheater that they've built that the families come and watch the sunsets, and that's just kind of a cool and really neat, area, altogether.
Costa Rica people in general are big family people. I mean, big family people, and yeah, they do that. You see, at the marina here with that deal at sunset, they'll just line up waiting for the sun to go down to view that day, and then and then tomorrow's another one, So yeah, it's really cool that they do that, and the marina is amazing, with what they have here, and they try very hard to make it work for everything, even in these trying times, very hard.
Yeah. So Kelly, I got another question for you that I want to ask. And between hunting and fishing with your dad, between those two, what was your favorite, and maybe the same, it would be the same answer, but your favorite memory of either one of those?
Okay. Let's see. Well, probably being an outfitter's daughter, you'd be surprised to know I only went on 2 hunts. One was with a friend of ours who was hunting on public land, so we went with. And then the other, though, would be my most memorable, because there was a woman hunter that came on a solo trip, and I rode along with. And that was actually my first elk hunt that I went on, was with my dad, and her name was Joan. And I remember it was just so empowering that she came by herself, and she wanted, I think, did she get all 3, Dad? Like a elk, antelope, and deer?
Didn't we get a really big deer? And then we thought, well, let's go over to Fred's place, and we went over there and dribbled in elk.
Yeah, but I mean, that was one of my favorite memories, just because it was cool to follow and watch my dad do his thing, and then also be along with this other fierce, hardcore woman hunter that's just doing it by herself. And so that was a really cool moment. But I would say I have fished with my dad a lot more than hunting, obviously. But and I think the marlin catching would be my favorite, just because it was good. And I dropped the F-bomb multiple times in front of my dad because it was a big fighter. And then the joke was ongoing once my husband came or was with us that he could never catch a marlin, and so I did. So that's bragging rights.
That's right. Now, was that in Key West or?
No, that was in Mexico.
In Mexico? Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. That's, I can't wait to get back to Costa Rica and go after some marlin and sailfish, and that'll be a lot of fun. And that's going to be great. So, Richard, any last thoughts for today's program?
No, I just think spend time with your family the best you can right now. Try to I got this, thing in my head that, once everything starts spinning again, or it's always going to be different. So take the opportunities you can to spend time the most you can, because time is the most valuable thing you got right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kelly, any of your last thoughts?
No, I think it's the same. Just spend time with family and follow what you love to do. I think that's what my parents showed me in being raised in the business is some people might not understand it or they might not support it, but if you're following what you love to do, it doesn't matter because it'll work out for you however it's supposed to be. So I think that was the biggest lesson from that.
Yeah. Awesome.
What
Guys are really
was that?
go ahead, Richard.
What?
I just was going to ask Kelly really quick. Remember that thing that you sent me about being in the outdoors, grounding when you're sitting on the ground, or how that was with? I don't remember how that all worked.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people do it, just like skin to ground contact, just because the earth and nature and trees and everything has all this good energy for you. So when in doubt, always go outside and hang out.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
got to share one story, Chris, and then you go.
Yeah.
When Kelly
All right.
talked about how she went everywhere with me, and she did,
Right.
and that I learned a lesson when you said that mother, the earth and that, and
Mm-hmm.
Kelly, we put Kelly in a Montessori school, and so they had this really strict teacher, and so I would take her to school and drop her off, and this lady would come and get Kelly, and I was scared to death of her, and Kelly, she kept teaching about mother. Well, you're singing that song, Mother Earth, Mother, or something like
the
that.
earth is my mother.
And so you were always singing that song. And so I dropped off Kelly, and that's when I learned I really had to watch what I said. And you were probably 2 years old, and you're in the back seat in the car seat, and this lady comes to pick up Kelly, and all of a sudden I hear her saying, "Oh shit, Daddy, I forgot my mittens." And that lady looked at me like she's gonna beat the heck out of me. And I said, "Kelly, you can't say that." And I thought that's when I had to really clean up my stuff too.
Yeah. Kids. Yeah. The kids.
And unfortunately, that still happens. I say that all the time, and I forget everything.
Yeah, you got. Yeah, what do you do?
Yeah. Right.
Well,
Wow.
Yeah, well, thanks, Chris, again for getting to visit with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And appreciate everybody that tuned in and listened. And if you haven't already, be sure and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We do appreciate that. And we've got a lot of great content coming up. We're excited about that as well. And remember, of course, go to elkhorninternational.com and check out all that they have to offer there. As Richard Dodds has so much going on when it comes to sport fishing, when it comes to big game hunts in South Africa, New Zealand. You can book fish or a hunt of a lifetime at elkhorninternational.com. Again, Richard, Kelly, we appreciate you guys coming on and talking and of course, reminiscing a little bit about the beginning of Elkhorn Outfitters. And we'll look forward to talking more about everything that's going on and looking forward to hearing about those that youth tournament as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Yep. All right,
Thank
guys.
you.
You guys be good.
Okay, bye.
All right.
We'll see you.
All right.
Bye.